time to turn off your cell phone or your camera and just join us without the camera on. I'm actually covering up my picture because it drives me nuts to sit there and stare at myself. Um, Super excited to have you all here today. I'm hoping that you'll just put in the chat for me really quickly too. What brings you here today? What are you hoping to learn from us? Was it just interest, or is there a specific need that you have? Let us know what's going on there, and then we'll launch into our presentation for you all. Carrie's going to be putting in the chat the link to our presentation. It's also up in the corner if you see it up there. I'm going to share my screen and then you'll be able to see it. All right. So let's go here. Entire screen, that's what I want. All right. So we are going to get started. I'm going to look at the chat, trying to get my things all in a row here. So we have, let's see, interest and making sure we're adequately keeping students. Yep. Keeping up, and that's a big thing, right? Because technology is changing so quickly. We have to keep up with the technology. We got to know what students are doing on it if we're going to help with guiding them with how to deal with things like cyberbullying, planning future digital citizenship initiatives. We're going to be working on that at the county. We are putting together currently as we speak some curriculum for teachers and some guides. And then we'll also be offering a certification from the County Office of Ed for cohorts and teams, but we'll have more information on that coming out here in the next few weeks, hopefully. I see cyberbullying, absolutely. Keeping up to date, perfect. All right, yay for the county team. We love having you all come today. You are super supportive of us. And so this presentation we call Being You, because it's really that intersection of AI ethics, cyberbullying prevention. And when we talk to students, it starts with just reminding them of who they are in their community and the fact that they're not a different person when they're online. So one of the ways we can help students with preventing cyberbullying is to really build community, build belonging, and reminding them and teaching them about some of the things that can create barriers when they hop online. So I'm just going to pull up the next slide. Oops. Our agenda today, we're going to be talking about just in general, some of the ways that AI can be used in cyberbullying and how it is the same but different from bullying that has occurred, since schools were created. I would have to imagine just the next level of it, and then also what the possibilities are, so that we as teachers and we as parents are not really blindsided when something comes out and we didn't know that it existed and then have to kind of deal with it on the spot. So this is part prevention, it's part knowledge about what can happen, so that if it does happen, you are more prepared. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about different types of AI-driven behaviors. There's what we call cyber envy, and I'm going to give Alicia Gallegos-Betters, my director, kind of kudos on that, because I had never really heard of that concept. She has done a lot of reporting on it and presenting on it. And while I'm at it, because I'm just realizing I did not do this, Alicia and Carrie, my other colleague here, Carrie Lane, is going to be presenting with me today. I think it's because I just didn't have that slide in there. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves very quickly?
Hi, oh, I keep getting in and out of the sun. Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia Gallegos-Betters. I have the pleasure of serving as the director and getting to work with Pamela and Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie. I am a project specialist on the EdTech team.
Thank you. And again, I'm Pamela Rabin. I'm a coordinator of educational technology. And while I'm sitting here talking about cyberbullying and some of the things that we've learned about, I am going to put out there, I am by no means the world's premier expert on this, but what we do know is we know students and we know technology, and this is kind of the confluence of both of those. So we know a couple things about it. So we're going to share that with you today. So also we'll talk about, along with cyber envy, what bullying can look like when it's manifested online and through technologies, and then also a little around exploitation, just so that people are kind of aware of how that's a thing out there that could be dangerous for students, and maybe how to talk with students to avoid those kinds of situations. We'll talk about kind of the impacts of on students, and then we have some resources and some ideas for you around prevention, because that's really where it all begins, is thinking around how we build community and how we prevent from happening in the first place. So I'm going to put a slide up next. This is one of those interactive things. So if you have a cell phone, you can scan the QR code down here. Whoops. There we go. And it can get you started, or you can type in this URL. So if you join by text, you can scan the QR code. It should take you there. You can also just send a text to PRaben565, and then you type in the number 37607. I think that's how that works. And then you can also just go online on a URL, open up a new tab, and go to pollev.com. And I see some of you are in there already. And I've got a poll question for you, which is just, do you think you know AI when you see it? How are your AI detection skills? Give some time here for you to put your responses in, to see them change over time. If you don't have the ability to do the poll and you want to put it in the chat, and that's easier for you, you can go ahead and just tell us in the chat A, B, C, D, and we'll take a look there. I want everyone to be able to participate to some degree. So we've got some people are saying, yeah, I know it when I see it, about 50% of you. I've got Kimberly, thank you, and Teresa are kind of in that C and D range. I'm glad that there's no one saying strongly disagree. I never know AI when I see it, and I believe that those camels being washed away by the giant tidal wave that I see online all the time are real. A lot of people with C kind of unsure. That's sort of where I fall into that category, and my children make fun of me because as you'll see next, I'm going to give this just a few more seconds here. We're going to do a little detection of our own. So I have a great game for us to play. It's called basically, is it AI or not? Which image is real? So it looks like we've kind of gotten our responses in there. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide and get us started on this game. The game, again, is how is your AI detector? And our job is to let Carrie do the slide.
Awesome. So you all shared whether you think you are able to detect AI, and most of us were unsure, or we slightly agreed or disagreed. This is a great activity that you can do with your students. The one caveat with using this is that it does have a name that you should probably not show to your students, so you'll just want to make sure that that name is hidden. And then other than that, it's a really great thing that you can do with students to teach them about recognizing real and fake and AI. You can basically have them pick between which one is real and fake. And so Pam is going to start the activity. All right, so looking at these two pictures, we have the woman on the left and the woman on the right with the glasses. Which person do you think is real? And if you want to share in the chat, is the person who's real the one with glasses or the one without glasses? So type with glasses if you think the with glasses woman is real, or without glasses is real.
Without glasses, like without, yeah, I don't know.
And I see a lot of mixed answers. Most are saying without, and some of the tells that you can look for when you're looking at a picture is, are the backgrounds kind of blending in a little bit differently than they should? Also, sometimes with AI, you might see a limb that is off or something coming out of someone's eye. So AI is not always perfect, and my guess would be that
pudieras morir en la cirugía, dice no.
My guess would be that this one is probably the fake one based on the random blur. But Pam, do you want to click? I think the most people said that without glasses is real.
Okay, so yeah, we want to click on the one that's real. I can tell you my children, and you guys seem to be pretty good detectors too. There you go. My kids can do this. I cannot.
All right.
You want to play it again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so which one is real? The person who has braces or the person without braces? And you can put it in the chat. Okay, most are saying the person with braces is real. So we'll click on that one.
Sorry. The one with the braces is real?
Yes.
Carrie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
And you guys are right again. All right, one more
Perfect.
time. Yeah.
And is the woman real or is the man real?
We got one man. Yeah, this one's tough. I'm gonna
Man
say,
card.
you know, what are people thinking about? Like, what's making you think the man is woman? So we got a lot of women. The woman's real. What are you looking at? The man has an odd collar. It's got a little red on one side and not on the other.
Yeah,
Something weird.
I think the woman is real because of the background.
There's some, yeah, weird blobby thing over here on the man. I think the thing that always blows my mind, Carrie, is that these people never existed. And so one of them exists on the planet, and one of them has never existed. And we are so programmed to want to see images of people and think that they're real, especially when they're very realistic like this, or that they are, even if it was someone who's not alive anymore, but was once on the planet. So it's fascinating to me. All right, wavy line in the background. I'll let you take this, Carrie.
All right, so I think that we are going to pick the woman. It looks like more people think the woman is real.
Ta-da!
Perfect. And the reason that we like to show this is because it gives you a good idea of how much is out there that is not real. And as Pam mentioned, sometimes it's hard to fathom that something that we're seeing actually doesn't exist. It's not a mock-up of a person. It's not a person that's been photoshopped. It's really something that's a composite or a compilation of multiple different people put together that they've just compiled into AI. And so this is a great lesson for your students too, to start thinking about how they can become detectors of what's real and what's fake online. And moving forward on that, Pam is going to talk a little bit about how you can start to teach your students about what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, so when we're looking at imagery for students, it's important to kind of think of the frame of reference that they have, that they are constantly bombarded with images on social media. And one of the fascinating things that can happen is you begin to believe that that's reality. So when students are presented with imagery and social media, even if it's not completely AI or completely filtered by artificial intelligence kind of programs, you're getting a look at what people are wanting to present about their lives. So I think the first layer is that cyber envy kind of idea that somehow I'm missing out. If you look at the picture of the social media versus reality, if you just watch social media, sometimes you would believe that every destination is absolutely beautiful and does not have anybody in it because it's always some very beautiful woman in her white flowing dress running through, the background of Big Sur or some Scottish Highland somewhere. And then the reality of that is often different, right? So nobody posts when they're miserable climbing up a mountain, really. Nobody posts when there are 50,000 people entering one of our national parks and you're sitting there in your car and you've been 2 hours just to get into the park. They post the beautiful things about it, the family smiling. So same thing, you would see, I always love this picture of the closet organized because my closet does not look like that. I think my closet is about the size of maybe one of those little rooms in there. But if you see this kind of stuff, I might start thinking, hey, I need to add on to my house and have some kind of a new closet. This becomes the standard, right? And then the food, you see pictures posting all the time of people and their food that they're eating, and they must live a wonderful life because look at how healthy they are. And anybody who has a family knows that your food and dinners do not look like this every night. And if yours do, then you have to tell me your secret. So same thing with images. So we have in the top left-hand corner, sorry, Beyonce, and she is a beautiful woman, unfiltered. Yet when she's being shown in imagery and in videos and things, they are altering her image to make her look more perfect, to make her look younger than she is at this point. And again, this is the standard by which young students begin to judge themselves and others. I love putting in the picture of me with LeVar Burton because you would think in looking at that picture, maybe I just hang out with him all the time. And the reality of that picture is I was at a very large conference. I stood in a line for an hour to take this picture. And I was there for about 2 seconds, if that, literally walked up, smiled, they took the picture, they handed me my phone back, and I left. And that is my knowledge of LeVar Burton, how much I've actually stood next to him. And then the last one here is the portrait of the woman. And if you look at it, again, you have a beautiful woman in the right-hand picture, but somehow we've determined that she wasn't beautiful enough. She needs to be given features that are more European, and that, even the coloring and everything has been changed. So when we talk with students about what they're seeing online, when we bring in conversations around what's real, what's not, what's filtered, what is life really like, we want to make sure that they know when they're getting online that it's an altered state of reality, right? Okay, so my next slide here. I wanted to also make you aware of some of the things that AI can do. So this first video I want to show you is me, and there's an app called 11 Labs. And let me just show you what it does here. And I'm hoping you can hear it because the volume's really kind of low on it to begin with. But let me stop talking and I'll push this up as high as I can. Thumbs up if you could kind of hear that.
We cannot hear it, Pam.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, this video shows me in my own voice speaking French fluently. And I don't speak French at all. I wish I did, but I don't. So again, it's just that idea that AI is now able to copy your voice at my tone, it sounds like me, and it can make me say basically anything it wants to. In this case, it's just translating, but it's using my voice, which is a kind of a new thing. So students need to be aware. There's these new things where, grandparents will be called and they'll be asked for money, and it's their college-aged grandchild who, needs to be bailed out of something or needs them to send them money urgently. And because it sounds like their child or their grandchild, people are, getting on the phone and sending money or doing whatever they're asking. So students need to know that as well. If your parent calls up and says, hey, meet me on the corner over here and get in this strange guy's car, that it may or may not be your family member. So a lot of times we're making safe words now. I know when I was a kid and occasionally, there might have been a time when I was in gymnastics or something and my mom would say, hey, if anything, if there's ever an emergency, here's the magic word. If that person doesn't know that magic word, you don't get in the car with them. And that's the same thing when we're online. Yeah, Roxanne, that app actually can be very helpful for second language learners when used appropriately. So again, it's that idea that AI can do things, it can copy things, it can mimic things. Here's another thing. I found this on my cell phone. And I was looking at this picture and I was thinking, who is this person? Why is this man on my cell phone? How do I know them? I'm like, gosh, they look very familiar. And I started like thinking, did I know them in high school? Was this one of my husband's friends? And I finally was just looking at the eyes, realized that's my daughter. Her name's Monica, and she's got a filter on that makes her look like a man. So, I had a good laugh at the time about it. But again, it's very serious that you can filter yourself, take pictures, you look like someone completely different. We have ways of online now just filtering yourself so you look like a different person. So again, you have to really be cognizant of that, and students need to know as well that these things are possible. So there are these fun avatar kind of building things out there, and one of the things we also need to be aware of is that AI has some bias in it, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But in the bias, you kind of think that it's going to pump out something. It took me about 30 times to get this really epic picture of me, because when I put in that I want it to be kind of a fantastical, epic picture, this is one of the first images that the AI pumped out for me. So I guess the AI is telling me I look like a man who's older and I should be a wizard on a hill or something. Wasn't exactly what I was wanting, kind of gave me a good laugh. But again, the fact that I can take images, these were from images off the internet, I put them into this thing, it made these different avatars for me. And if in the wrong hands, what could that mean for students? So it's funny, haha, when I'm doing it for myself. This is my husband, Mick. I did the same thing with him. I took his image and I put it through, and I got the epic picture of him, but then I also got him looking like Shrek. So if I was a 7th grade student and my, junior high brain could come out, this is something that I could post online. And if it could make a student feel upset. And if I was continuously doing it, if I was really wanting to rattle that person or bully that person, this is a new way to do it. Post it online, everybody sees it, and that child or that student could be kind of devastated. All right, and then over here, I just wanted you to see that we have the ability to animate images as well. So this is just a drawing, but you get the idea that this was a drawing my daughter drew, and I animated it for her. But imagine if this was a picture of somebody with somebody else's head on it, and now it's walking around. So I think in showing you these things, I just wanted you to kind of think that we need to know that these things are possible now. We need to prepare students in advance for the fact that all of these kinds of things exist out there. And then if it does happen, I mean, we look at these things and we can laugh it off and say, oh, come on, you know that I'm not Shrek, you know that I'm not an old man. But for students, it gives them, in knowing, if they understand the AI and they know that it's very prevalently out there, and to some degree, and there's the good side of, we can say, oh, this is very common. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. In that sense, that kind of shelters a student from real harm where they might be believed that they did something. So if someone made a video and they swapped your head for it, and that has happened where they've had pornography and someone's put someone else's head on it, put it out there into the world, that there's maybe a little bit of hope in the fact that you just can't believe what's put out there, right? So, but it works both ways, because then we get to a point where we say, what can we really believe that's out there about these things? But for today, we're going to stick to this cyberbullying kind of end of it. Okay. So for this slide, what do we as adults, what can we do to help mitigate and to help students know about these kinds of things that can happen online? So really, it's that idea of being proactive. We as adults need to know what the AI is out there. We need to kind of keep up with that so that we can anticipate that things could happen and they don't blindside us, like I said before. And we know if these things happen, I have policies in my district. So there are already existing policies that cover bullying, and there are already existing policies that can cover, what do you follow when there's bullying going on or there is inappropriate use of technology going on. And this is kind of that combination of both of them. So to begin with, I always highly recommend just those proactive conversations. Let's talk about it. This is all part of digital literacy, and artificial intelligence is now being, it's actually in a law that will take place in October of next, or July of next year, in the beginning of the next school year. textbooks companies are going to have to include AI literacy and digital literacy type information into new textbooks and things like that in California. Garnering support from adults and parents, making sure that when we are talking to them as educators, that they're creating an environment at home where students can come to them. So parents need to know these things are possible as well. If a student has a picture of them going around on the internet and it's highly inappropriate, but someone swapped their head out and they think their parents are going to really question whether that was them or not, whether they'd been doing something, they might be hesitant to go to their families. And in these situations, students really need their families. They need adults around them who are going to help them to take kind of what it says here, to take the shame out of being victimized and to then come full circle around them and help them to understand how to move forward. So we can also work with our schools to just really build inclusive communities where bullying of any type is not acceptable. And I know a lot of school districts work on that. So we just add in the AI, we add in the digital world and on top of that. So we can teach digital ethics, responsibility, and then make sure students know what the consequences are. All right, so I'm going to pause here for a moment before I move on and just ask if there are any questions. I can see, yeah, I think I've covered all the questions that were in the chat. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions on this or in the chat? Has this affected you in your classroom at all yet?
I had a question.
Sure.
What does it mean that you said the textbooks are gonna something about AI literacy?
Yeah, so there is a new law out, and I can follow up by sending that out when we have our video for this go out. It is a new law, and it's just basically saying that they are wanting companies that are creating curriculum to include AI literacy, so like knowledge of how AI, what AI is, how it works, and the ways that it's being used within, you know, all the different industrial fields. But part of that as well as digital citizenship on, you know, how can you triangulate information to figure out if what you're seeing on the internet is true. So if you see something posted, to be skeptical and then to kind of do your own research. So they're just beginning to include, I don't think it's like a whole new field of stuff that will be in the books, like, oh, now you have another chapter you have to teach, but there will be notes within there of, oh, hey, you might talk about digital literacy in this way, in this particular part of our assignment. That's my understanding of it, was just that it was supposed to be beginning to be included into some curriculum. I think it's more heavily in, obviously, computer sciences and math and things like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, in terms of, you know, what are things that schools and districts have? You have acceptable use policies already. I know that a lot of districts are kind of working to put AI language into those, but they all do kind of back up your original district policies around bullying and technology use. So one thing teachers can do is to call out AI use within their classrooms. So when is it appropriate? When is it not? Making sure that you're following what the district's policies are on bullying. You might have something in there about not using technology, and then you can say including AI to embarrass or harass or other people. And then we said schools and districts need to kind of create AI incident response plans. And I would say at the teacher level, that just means knowing who you, if you have incidences of bullying in your school, where do you go? Some districts have immediate resources on their websites. Some it's more through the school, but finding out what your district policies are in general around bullying and just having that knowledge so that if something happens, you know what you need to do. So I kind of refer you back to your school policies for that, but it's that moment to say, you know, I'm not exactly sure what we do for bullying. There's sometimes I handle it in my classroom, or there's sometimes I handle it at the school level, but But what is that plan? Because a lot of times these AI incidences will just fall right into those existing policies. Thank you, Valerie. All right, let me move on here. I'm going to let Carrie take this.
Thank you, Pam. So as you are thinking about how to utilize AI in your classroom, and as you're thinking about cyberbullying and the potential risks for students, we all are hoping to use AI to think about how we can make our content better, how we can assess our students' papers and give some formative feedback more effectively and efficiently the first time that we go around, how we can use it for aiding creativity and collaboration. But it's also really important to think about, we've all experienced students being bullied before, unfortunately. This is nothing new, but AI does provide a new avenue by which students can be bullied and can experience some types of cyberbullying, cyber envy, all of the things that Pam discussed before. And so as we are moving through this, it's just important to start to think about ways that we can teach our students how to recognize when things are real and fake, and that a lot of things that do happen are not necessarily the real thing. And so as we start to get used to this as a society, it will kind of give us more of a critical eye. And I think that that's important for just raising students' awareness and raising our own awareness of things that we can be fearful of, but we can also start to prepare our students for.
Hey, yeah, and so part of that is using, we encourage teachers to kind of use AI themselves to kind of begin to dabble in it right now. And you're here right now learning about it, so kudos to you all. Because that is how we begin to also take on parents' fears around what could happen with their students and be able to talk with them about it, similar to how we're talking with you right now. Okay. So I want to kind of move on to some of the ways that AI can inherently be a bit biased. So a lot of times you'll hear in the world of any kind of computing that what comes out of any kind of generator, any kind of product that generates new information, what comes out of it is only as good as the data that's fed into it. So early on, some of the things that AI was really bad about, and they've gotten better. They are beginning to feed more data into the systems to make sure that the data that is represented is more or the data is more representative, I should say, of different cultures, different communities, different ways of thinking than a very European-centric model, which is what the first AIs coming out did. The way that AI works is it takes an average of all the data that happens to be related to a topic that you type into it. So if you're asking it to produce an image of someone playing basketball, all of the stereotypes that you can imagine in your head would more than likely have come right out into an image that you created for that. So again, just being aware that that is what the system is going to do sometimes is super important. So there are these things called microaggressions, which are things that happen to people all throughout the day, specifically minority groups, that some people might say, oh, just let it go. It wasn't that big of a deal. But when these things happen to you constantly, when they are happening over and over and over and over again, they do cause harm. So I'll let you kind of read the part we have here, but then AI itself can be doing that. So it's another thing that we need to be aware of. If we're using AI, if we're generating things from AI, really take a close look at it. You have to be the human in the mix who's being very cognizant of the fact that what AI pumps out can sometimes have stereotypes in them, biases in them, things like that. And you have to make sure you're giving it the prompts to work against that. So an example here of two types of microaggressions that can be caused by the algorithms in AI, the way that it processes information based on very constrained data sets sometimes, is stereotyping. So again, it's going, any stereotyping that might be out there in the world that finds its way into our data is going to be reflected in what AI produces. And then also what we call erasure algorithmic, basically where it's just not giving you information. So if you ask for different cultures around the world and it just happens to not know one, it will leave that one out. So I hope that's kind of making sense. So it's either putting in stereotypes because they're just inherent within the data that they've been built on, or it is just leaving things out. And a good example of that, the video that I tried to show you of me speaking French, those kinds of language model translation AI devices, they're very good at translating some languages. So Spanish and French, languages that get a lot of attention in the United States, are going to be better translations because they just have more people and more data being put into the system on how to translate appropriately. If you have less represented languages, so if you're speaking, you need a translation into Gali, or you need a translation into another language that is not as common, the translations just are not going to be as good because they're not getting as much attention in terms of the type of data that's being fed into them. And there are some languages that don't even get translated. So I think on a few of the apps, I don't think 11 Labs will do Vietnamese translations. And I could say yet, maybe they are now. When we first looked at them, they didn't. So there's things that are being just kind of left out of the process. And again, to be aware of that. Okay, so here are some good examples of some bias that were inherent in some of these platforms. So this is a young lady who is in college, and she wanted to put a filter on her picture. The first picture on the left is her, and she said, okay, this is the AI editing. And you can see how it completely altered the picture. She looks like she's a different race. She does not look like herself. That was the filter and how it changed her. So kind of interesting there. This is an image that was pixelated, and we as humans who kind of know that left side picture can pretty much guess that that was Barack Obama. When the AI tried to guess who it was, you can see the result from that. So it went, again, it changed his race, changed his, it thinks he was, just basically based on the skin tones from the picture, made him look more European. Down here, these are just some interesting images. This was a AI that had been programmed to identify images. And this kind of works both ways. In this one, it would look at what it would see was the agent, which would be, it's going to identify a human in the mix, what they're doing, kind of where they are, things like that. And it almost always, if someone was cooking, would say that that was a woman. So you can see the far right image there. It says agent, woman, and because the cooking was the topic. So again, this was an instance where they realized their model, for whatever reason, just completely associated cooking with a female job. And they had to make changes on that particular model.
Pam, we had a great question in the chat. Out of curiosity, how old are the AI examples that you are currently showing?
So my understanding is the filters are probably a little bit older than how they are now. And I have said they are getting a lot better about not doing that, because when and maybe a year or 2 years now since they started heavily coming out with some of the AI filters. But a couple of years ago, it was all over the place. People were constantly posting pictures of, look what the AI did to me, you know, and I wanted to be a Disney princess, and look what it's done to me. So again, they got the people who make these apps, they got them information. They kind of knew we have to make some changes here. Yeah, the AI technology does move lightning fast. All right, so last thing here, and I don't know that I completely have time to go through this, but I'll show you briefly. I want to encourage you to kind of take a look at it. This is just an article, but it is a very interactive article. And it talks about AI. This was 2023. And it went through, and this was, they took all of these images. It's hard to see in here that were people, and it's freezing for me for some reason, probably because I'm presenting. But, and they asked the AI then to come. So these were all images off of, the way I understand it, social media. It took all the images and then generated its own images of people. And then they asked it questions. So there's 5,100 images, and these are all the AI generated people. But then they started to map facial skin colors. And then they started to say things like, and I'll show you here, and that's as far as I'm going to go into it, but I highly recommend you look at it when we're done. Like high-paying occupations, they have architect, lawyer, politician, doctor, CEO, judge, engineer. They asked the AI whether they're, to kind of character type it as would it be a man or a woman. So imagine the image they're looking at, and they were trying to decide, is this person in a high wage paying job or not? And the AI, you can see, came up with more men being in high wage paying jobs for whatever reason than housekeeper, social worker, teacher, cashier. So there's just different examples in here of ways that the AI, based on social media, based on data sets that it has, characterized, like this is skin tone, and how would you characterize the type of job that that person would have? So again, I would take a look at it. It's interesting. It definitely shows bias in the system, and it's a really good, they also have a podcast attached to it. All right, let me go on to the next slide though. So this is just where we get to the point where people kind of ask me, well, isn't there some kind of monitoring that we could be doing when we're in schools to look for AI content, to look for AI bullying, even out there on social media? Can't they apply filters so that this gets flagged and doesn't happen? And my answer is sort of yes and, because yeah, they're coming out with new filters. They are coming out with things that can identify AI text. There is a law about another law where the main companies who have 1 million subscribers are going to have to create a detector that will detect their own generated stuff. And there's got to be a latent description saying this was AI generated. And there's then going to be the internal kind of more programmed in thing that can be detected to say this was AI generated. But can people get around that? Of course they can. So the yes and is there's always ways that people manage to get around these things. So really it comes down to us, and us knowing our students, I would say, would be our best way to go. And then I'm going to let Carrie take over digital citizenship.
Great.
Am I right there, Carrie? What does that mean? It's you.
You were going to talk a little bit more about digital citizenship for the first couple of slides.
Okay. Okay, so and I'm sorry, Carrie, if I might be off on, this was my slide. So with digital citizenship, there's a couple areas. We talk about social media. We talk with students about being digital citizens. We talk to them about how they can interact in a world and be online. And that involves being on social media, kind of securing their own information. So there's the middle circle there's kind of around just personally identifiable information and making sure that you're not putting too much out there into the world. And then Carrie's going to talk a little bit about digital footprint. Okay, one of the things we try to work with students on, again, and I said this earlier, was just reminding them who they are. They're part of families, they're on football teams or extracurricular teams. They may be part of religious organizations. They're definitely part of classrooms. They have their friend groups. And there's certain ways that we behave when we're around all of these different groups. And, we can be a little more informal with our friend groups, and we might kid around, and because of the relationships you have there are times when you're just being fun and kind of poking fun at each other. But then there's other times when you're not, and it turns into bullying. And I think kids need to be aware, and it's kind of this image here in the middle with the kid on his cell phone, that there is something about being online that makes you act in a different way. And so the next slide kind of gets into some of the reasons that we can talk to students about. The first level is that there's a degree of anonymity when you're online that allows you to feel almost like you have a mask on, that people can't notice, that they won't be able to identify you, because there's that block between you and a real human being through the screen. So students need to be aware that this takes place. There's a certain degree of anonymity. It's like you can't see that person. The next one is that there is a certain amount of lag time. And that means, you know, if I walk up to you on the playground and I call you a name or I make fun of you, I have to see your reaction. I have to know that I'm hurting you. And sometimes, you know, the bullies care and they don't, but there's that direct, immediate thing that happens. And what can turn anybody into a bully online is that lack of lag time. So there's this time between when you do something and when you may actually begin to see consequences from it. So we always tell students, stop and think, you know, think before you post, those kinds of things. And they need to know that lag time is a huge element into bullying. The other one is lack of social cueing. So again, you don't have that person in front of you. It's very easy to dehumanize people that are on the other end. We all have heard about trolling on the internet. We've read horrible comments that people will make to each other. And you know that they would not talk that way. And you know that sometimes your posting comes through in a completely different way than what you intended it to, because again, lack of social cueing. So I might say something in my head kind of kiddingly, and I think it's funny, and I post it, and it comes across super harsh to the person who's reading it because they don't have that back and forth reciprocity with you to really understand what's going on. So those three things, the anonymity, the lag time, and the lack of social cueing, students need to be aware of this, and these are good things to talk with them about. All right, and then we have kind of also making sure they know what those consequences are. So again, there's that lag time. They can be bullying, but then eventually these things can catch up with you because people will take screenshots. So sometimes there's apps where you post something and it's gone in 10 minutes, or as soon as enough people see it, it's off, it gets erased, and students think that they have that anonymity again. But they need to be aware, again, people can take screenshots. They can start to make a path to find out who is doing this. There's always somebody out there who knows that it was you or you're telling people. Very rarely do these things become very hard within a friendship group, that is, to trace. In here, some of the harm that can be caused or some of the real consequences of misuse, losing friendships over it, losing respect from other people when it comes out that you're doing these kinds of things, causing real harm to people, harm that can, you know, on the very, very horrible end of that, sometimes have very serious consequences. It also is bad for the bully's mental health. There's a lot of research around that. Students who bully sometimes do it because they have other issues in their lives, but that it does seem to cause harm to them as well. Students need to be aware of that. And it can have legal actions that are involved with it. So students need to know that there are slander and defamation laws, and they also need to know at any age, and especially your teenagers, that if they're putting imagery out there that's pornographic or other things, that there's serious consequences involved with that as well. And it can, they also need to know, and Carrie's going to talk about digital footprint here in a minute, that it can impact future opportunities for you. So colleges and jobs and people, they look at those things, they listen in. Even within the world of gaming, there are people who are known to be not particularly nice, and that gets out. You know, that is this someone we would really want to have as a team player in my profession if this is the way they treat people online. All right, last one for me. I have a link to a resource pack. I'm just going to click on the picture and then I'm going to hand the rest of the time off to Carrie. But if you click on the image of that, it leads you to a booklet that is available. We're going to have this available online pretty soon. One of the things to know is if you go up to view and you say that you are going to show, there they are. Make sure you're showing the outline. It's kind of helpful to get through the book. But we have a lot of resources and information for you listed on here. They scroll down and they are organized by the tabs on the side. One of the things I wanted to point out was the scenarios. If you wanted to do some conversations with students, we've put in some scenarios for you on, is it cyberbullying? Is it not? What can bystanders do to help out? And then there's a lot of resources in here from the stopbullying.gov that can help. There's parent resources. We also have just links to other resources in here. So it's a huge plethora of information for you. And then I'm going to go back and let Carrie have the next slide.
as Pam mentioned, there is something called a digital footprint, which is where people are putting information online and it continues to exist on the internet. And with this, that can influence students as they grow older and are applying for jobs or for colleges, and it can influence them on a day-to-day basis with their relationship with other people. And so as you're talking to your students about digital footprint, it's really important to kind of teach them how to make sure that what they're putting online is the most positive representation of themselves. So we have some kind of scenarios here, and Pam, if you wouldn't mind just switching the slide. Here are some kind of examples of things that would be really good to share to create a digital footprint for yourself and for that your students can create for themselves that's positive, that's going to look good for them. So sharing things they're interested in, sharing the community service or the work that they're doing to better their environment, showing ways that they've learned or specific talents or hobbies that they have. These are all great ways that students can put things online while showing that positive profile of themselves that will make their digital footprint indicative of the positive things that will help them to get hired, help them to potentially make friends, help them to get into colleges. And if you want to go through an activity with your students, you can show them 2 pictures of students doing activities that they would be doing online and ask them which one is better. And so this is a great example of this. And we do have other examples as well, but this one, the one on the left, is someone who's posting angry messages about their boss and their job. And this would be the same for your students if they're posting angry messages about their friends or their teachers. That's going to create a digital footprint for them where they are seen as negative or complainers or hard to work with. But if they're posting things about the skills that they're gaining and positive impacts that they're hoping to get for the future based on their jobs or their experiences, those are the things that are going to show people who might be hiring them or selecting them for a college that they are eager to learn and that they are working on bettering themselves all the time. And so going through and showing students pictures of or examples of the negative things that you can put on your digital footprint versus the positive and encouraging them to take that positive route is really important as well.
Yeah, and I know sometimes people will say, well, I don't want kids getting in social media at all. A lot of parents will say that they kind of ban social media. And at certain ages, yeah, there's definitely a gradual release of kind of responsibility and levels of control that parents might put on those as kids get from in the younger ages. But as they get older, it's almost like they do need a little bit of a social media profile. And so I encouraged my daughters to go into Facebook, create an account. It can have their name on it, and to post again those public pictures. If you're doing community service or if you are doing something that is you've learned something new, or there's just something that you are doing that is kind of that friendly and interactive and community support person, those are good things to post. And we do highly recommend that people have that kind of social media presence, and then the other things that they try to avoid. So I think that brings us to the end here. We're right at 4:56. Are there any questions or things that people want to talk about? And then I just wanted to show you some extra resources that we have.
Pam, just to tell you, Josh shared something about 11 labs and the security in the chat that was very useful. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Josh, for sharing that link. Okay, so I'm going to just end by showing you, if you are interested in keeping up with any of the various webinars that we do, and I'm hoping you found this informative today. We try to keep it kind of light and not overwhelm you with a million facts, but just to get you thinking in an area, especially around cyberbullying. And with that, I believe the biggest thing is just knowing what kinds of processes could happen and planning your own approach for how you prevent it through conversations with students, and then looking back into the existing policies that you have within your district. if you are ever interested in what we have available to teachers and how we can support you, our website is on sdcoe.net/edtech, and we've been working on updating that a little bit lately. So if you get to our main website here, you'll see we have information now on our summit, which is in August, on August 23rd. And we are going to be combining a whole bunch of different departments that we have here in innovation. So it's our usual Learning and Innovation Summit or conference. And then we're also adding in our DICE, or the Data Impact Center of Excellence. There are people who work a lot with data and data management and using data in schools. We're also hoping to work with our college and career readiness department. So there's a little bit more about integrating workforce and how you can bring that into your classroom. And then the LVIC team are the teachers who teach here, and they're kind of more ed techy people, but they're planning on doing some things for design thinking. And so it's a great place to come and learn, and the information's up here for you. We also have right here in the center, if you go to view events and resources, you can find out more about other webinars and things like that we have upcoming. This is just our calendar of events, things for the year. If it's in blue, we've already done it. We're here in February, and so these are our upcoming webinars. Well, I guess we'll be into March by the next time. So we have Curious About coming up. We're going to be doing an app slam. So I believe it's just kind of whatever our new favorite things are in the media, and I have a great one to show you with Canva. And we have an esports tournament coming up. Those are really for high schools. I think it's middle school, high school. They're going to be doing Minecraft challenges. Kind of exciting. Chris is going to probably be, what I'm looking for, broadcasting that as well if other people want to watch it. We have a Curious coming up about alternate reality games that Carrie is going to be spearheading, which is sort of, consider it like escape rooms, but rather than being in the room, it's outside in the whole school. And then we have Carrie's going to be doing accessibility evolution, so unveiling cutting edge apps and features. So if you want to talk about that one, Carrie, I think we're done.
Yeah, that one is just going to be looking at especially Chrome apps, but then other phone apps and things that you can use to support your students to help them with difficulties reading, writing, making things on the screen more visible, all sorts of different things to just help out your students who might have different needs that you can find that are free either in the App Store on your phone or on Chrome.
All right. And then one other thing just to point out, if you've missed any of our webinars or you want to catch up on them or you want to send someone to this one, you'll see we have links to the videos and the resources as soon as they're available up on this calendar as well. So with that, we are done. And I just want to thank everyone for spending time with us today. We know that you don't have to, and we really appreciate that you're here and want to learn. And we are always available if you want to email us or send a request to us. So feel free to, our website has our contact information. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Maureen. Good to see everyone. Have a great night.